Hey y'all, my name is Sarah and welcome to my channel. Hi everybody, so today is Use What You Got episode 3, Random Paper. I don't know about you, but in my house we have a ton of random paper pads and loose leaf paper sitting around the house. And a while ago I noticed that I had a pad of marker paper. It wasn't like rendered paper, which I kind of like. It doesn't suck up so much of the ink. But it's in a pad and the pages are pretty big and it's just not in a format that I would go to. I'm kind of a sketchbook and small sheet kind of person. So I decided to make a sketchbook out of this paper because I think it would be really fun to have a sketchbook just dedicated to basically marker paper. I can use colored pencils, markers, fountain pens, pencil, all that stuff. And the paper is really thin, so I should be able to get a lot of pages in a book. So I'm using this Ben Fong Graphics 360 100% rag layout paper. So this is cotton paper. It says it's for markers. It does bleed through the back of one page, but it does not bleed through onto the next page. So you can use the front side of all your pages basically. And you don't have to worry about putting, you know, a slip page between while you're doing your art. So what I did is rip the top 2 inches off of the lengthwise side. So I ripped 2 inches off this way and then folded the paper in half to give me a 7x9 notebook. So yeah, I decided to make my own sketchbooks for Use What You Got, and actually I'm really happy with the results. So this book was the inspiration for the binding style and even some of the cover assembly. So this is the Midori One Day One Page dot grid, and it's undated. I love this notebook. I have not used it yet, but I really like that it has these perforations on the corner so you can rip off the corner after you've used a page, and by the time you're done you have an angled corner on all the pages. That's pretty cool. It lays totally flat and it's got these sort of minty greenish blue dots. I mean, this book is just, it's beautiful, and it was very affordable. I bought this off of JetPens if anyone is interested. I've had it for, I don't know, a year probably, and I haven't used it yet. To be fair, I don't know that I will use it this year either, but I do love having it. So the reason that I did things the way that I did is because of this binding. So I looked up this binding style and it's called Codex binding. So instead of having, you know, an external rope and then wrapping around like Coptic stitch, with Codex binding, you basically sew through one signature and then go to the next signature and sew through that one, and then go back to the top signature and sew through that one, and then back to the bottom signature, sew through that one. So you don't really have any long waist threads showing on your spine. I just think it looks really neat and tidy, and I like having the exposed spine because it makes it lay flat. It's just a really, really nice style. I think it looks really attractive. Another thing is I've noticed Pith sketchbooks have been using Codex style binding, I think, and I really like their sketchbooks as well. So this sketchbook that I've made is kind of a combination of this Midori One Day One Page notebook and the Pith sketchbooks that I've seen. So I'm not necessarily going to be doing a tutorial on how to do Codex binding, but I am gonna give you a few tips during the voiceover as I sew my binding together. Just some things that I have figured out through the process of making these sketchbooks, and I hope that they help you as well. So without further ado, let's get to making these sketchbooks. So I started with paper that was 11 by 14. I tore it down to 9 by 14 and then folded it in half to make the signatures for the book. Once the paper was all torn down to the right size, I folded each signature in half and pressed it with a pencil, which is what I had on hand. Once all the signatures were folded, I measured and marked out where the holes should go. I measured incorrectly. You need an even number of holes and an odd number of gaps between each hole. Make sure you don't make that mistake. Then I punched all the holes in the folds of the paper using this little metal toothpick thing. You can find them on Amazon. I think they're sold as keychain toothpicks maybe, but I find they're super handy for like stirring paint and poking holes in paper, things like that. So I have 3 tips for you when you're doing codex binding. The first is to clip the sections of paper together using some kind of clips. I'm using binder clips here. My next tip is to use some kind of paperweight, rock, water bottle, whatever you got sitting around to hold the book flat while you pull your stitches, because you need one hand to pull and the other hand to keep the thread from getting knotted, especially while your thread is a bit longer. So I found that putting something on top of the book while I was doing that was very helpful. And my last tip is to make sure you always tighten your thread in the same direction that you've been sewing your stitches. If you pull towards you, you're likely to tear your paper. If you pull against the sewing direction, you will absolutely tear your paper. The other sort of side tip is don't skimp on the thread. I used a thicker cotton thread here that I had from some quilting projects, and by the time I was done with the sketchbook, it had broken probably 4 times on the last 3 signatures. It was very frustrating by the time I was done here, so definitely go for the waxed linen bookbinding thread. It will be worth it. So now I'm going to show you how I attached the cardboard covers to the books. So because each booklet has a flyleaf, which is that sort of cardstock layer on top, it's just a single signature of one piece of cardstock. You can attach the cardboard to the top layer of the flyleaf and it makes a really, really nice covered style. And I got this straight from the Midori notebook I showed at the beginning. And finally, this is the painfully excruciating process of me trimming the edge of the book. I really need a guillotine cutter for this, I think, in the future if I'm going to keep doing this, but for now, it does the job painfully. So this is my final sketchbook, and I have put, it's got flyleaf paper in here, so this is a harder cardstock paper. And this cardboard cover is glued straight onto the flyleaf. I think it makes a really nice cover style. And you can see the blue stitches, and I've put a book plate in. I think it just looks so classy. And the first page is a little bubbly because of the wetness from the glue, but it's fine, it doesn't matter. But you can see as I flip through, there's our binding. Now the binding Looks a bit different on the first signature, but as you go through, you'll see the binding is a nice consistent line, and the paper lays super nice and flat. You can see as the sketchbook is open, it's got plenty of room to sit flat, and the cardboard covers keep your book stiff so you could take it with you. And on the back, we've got more of that flyleaf paper. And I just wish I could get it to not do this, but I guess I should have dried it differently. I should have put a piece of paper in here maybe. So that's something for me to remember next time. But I really enjoyed this process, actually. I do think that this sketchbook took a really long time for me to make. Probably too long. I think next time I would do half the number of holes. And the other thing is, I miscounted. So when you do codex binding, you're supposed to have an even number of holes in your paper. But if you're a painter or watercolor artist, you'll know that usually we are counting the number of spaces between the lines. So I counted an even number of spaces, which means I needed an odd number of lines or holes. So just be aware you need an even number of holes. So an odd number of spaces when you're doing your math. So yeah, this is my finished sketchbook. I do not think that I will be putting anything else on this cover. I mean, I might do stickers, but I'm not going to put any sort of fabric or anything over it. I actually really like the sort of craft cardboard style. And then this is the other sketchbook I made. This one turned out really well, except for, I just don't like the corners on the cover. I mean, I think that they're fine and like it's not a big deal, but, and there's the flyleaf on this one as well. It's fine, it's not a big deal, but I wish it would have come out a little cleaner. So this one is done the same way, but you can see that I have missed some lines in the stitching. So I didn't think it was important enough to go back and rip back because I didn't even notice it was like that until I was halfway through. Knowing what I know now, and also I had to skip a hole for the same reason. I put too many holes in the paper. So knowing what I know now, I would do this differently. But for a first pass, it turned out really, really well. And this one also, you know, lays flat, just like the other. No problem. This one has a few less pages in it, but it's the same paper. So yeah, those are my two sketchbooks. And I hope you enjoyed watching the process, and I hope that these tips helped you if you're interested in making your own sketchbook. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next week. Bye.